me in touch with her.
I can't think of Murphy's ready. Is it live yet?
I believe so, yes.
We're
Not sure if this audio, all the audio works.
Okay, thanks, Sarah.
It's okay.
My father's understanding.
Sure wish the food was in here.
I just want you to know.
Because we were doing
Do we have a quorum for study session?
Oh.
And they're just
Alright,
ready.
sounds like a plan.
Yeah,
Because
tell
he
them
is
we're
here.
ready.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and start.
Now you know what I know.
Yep, thank you. This is a hybrid meeting of the city council. Here we go.
Yes, ma'am.
Members of the public can view this meeting live on Channel 8, the city's website, and YouTube. Live Spanish translation services are being provided for tonight's council meeting by telephone. Please dial 720-386-9023 and use code 104091 *.
Gran interpretación disponible en español en vivo por teléfono. Llame al 720-386-9023. Ingrese el código de conferencia 104091#.
The city clerk is the host of the Zoom meeting. Speakers will be able to unmute themselves when recognized. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have a presentation first on leased vehicle program discussion. I'd like to invite Jeffrey Maxwell and Sean Cole forward to give the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, members of council. I'm Jeff Maxwell. I'm in the city manager's office. I'm going to be making two presentations to you tonight. One on fleet services, leased vehicle services, and the second on custodial services. This is my first presentation to you all, so just a quick background about me. I joined Commerce City in April of this year. Prior to that, I was the Director of Public Works for Boulder County, department of about 250 people. It included the fleet division and the custodial division for all Boulder County. So I have a little familiarity with subjects and just wanted to give you that back before I dive into the presentations. So we are going to go over just a brief overview of the background. Sorry, trying to make a basement there. That's me again. Okay. Just going to cover the background, the current state of the leased vehicle program, and then the future state and next steps, and then get your feedback on all of those. So for background, Commerce City last year engaged a consultant to conduct a fleet analysis for us in 2022. There were several recommendations in that analysis, and I do want to be honest with you, that study was never completed. So we have a draft of the study. However, we do not have the final report. So I'm not going to get into all the details of how the fleet is operating, how our internal services are functioning, where improvements can be made for that. I'm going to focus instead on two of the big takeaways in the draft report that the author was pretty adamant about as far as changes we need to make for our fleet program. So first of all, they recommend that we move away from leasing vehicles and toward purchasing vehicles. The city currently engages in lease contract with Enterprise Leasing for almost all of our fleet vehicles. And this consultant came back and determined that we're paying about 12 to 30% more for those leased vehicles just in the purchase price than we would be paying if we worked through state bid and cooperative purchasing options that are available to us. So it's quite a bit more expensive upfront to purchase those vehicles. They also recommended strongly that we move toward purchasing sustainable alternative fuel vehicles. So they like to see us move toward electric vehicles and toward hybrid vehicles. And I put some operating cost comparisons down there on the slide for you. This is from the U.S. Office of Energy and Efficiency. For an internal combustion engine, it's about 10 cents per mile to operate. A hybrid vehicle is about 9.4 cents per mile. And then an electric vehicle is quite a bit less to operate at 6.1 cents per mile. So that's just the daily operating cost. That doesn't take into account the life cycle of the cars. And I'll talk about that in just a minute as well. So the two big takeaways are stop leasing, purchase the vehicles, and move toward electric and hybrid vehicles. So the current state of the city is we lease 165 vehicles. Of those, about half are on a month-to-month basis. So we have flexibility with what we can do with half of those vehicles. The total acquisition value of those is over $15 million. So it's a big investment for the city, and we're not recommending that you shift all of the currently leased vehicles over to purchased vehicles. It would just be too cost prohibitive to do that. The city does not currently have any electric vehicle charging stations in any of our facilities. We'll get to that in a minute as well. And for 2023, we have leased 19 vehicles. All of those were for the police department. So that's just kind of a current state of our leasing system here at the city. For the future state and next steps, we have 16 vehicles still to be ordered from the 2022 budget, 18 from the 2023 budget, and we would like to move slowly toward purchasing vehicles and away from leasing vehicles from Enterprise. Given the cost savings of 12 to 30% upfront, we think that is a sound move for the city to consider. And again, we would be talking about doing that slowly as budget allows us to do that. We would also like to begin incorporating the consultant's recommendation that we transition to electric vehicles. Again, the operating cost savings is about 40%. The other component we didn't talk about is the life cycle of the vehicles. So the battery life now for EVs is around 300,000 to 400,000 miles. The life cycle of a normal combustion engine is about 100,000 to 200,000 miles. So you save in operating, and then you get a great return on investment by using the vehicle for an additional 100,000 to 200,000 miles. So it's a pretty good return on investment either way. So right now we are installing an EV charger at the Municipal Services Center. And we are also going to be installing 2 chargers at the Civic Center and 2 at the Eagle Point Recreation Center. And then staff is also pursuing a grant from USDOT for us to install 10 additional EV charging stations. The big lag time in all of this is from Xcel. Xcel has to do the subsurface utility work for us. They do it for free, but they're about a year out. So it's quite a ways out before we can get to that. So our ask from you today is if you are supportive of moving towards EV vehicles and towards hybrid vehicles, and if you're supportive of us moving toward a purchasing vehicle program and away from a leased vehicle program, as funds allow, in working with the finance department and city manager.
Thank you. This time, does any council members have any questions? Councilmember Newman?
I am so excited.
Yeah.
This is a great step forward. I know July 1st that, of course, Colorado will be giving $5,000 rebate off of a car in addition, an EV, in addition to the $7,500 from the Fed. And I guess we're United Power, so they have discounts also that we can be taking advantage of for the charging station. And there are also discounts on leases. So if we lease any EVs, we can apply federal discounts also. And I think the state might have it too on a lease. Are we taking advantage of all of those opportunities?
So we don't have any leased EVs right now in our fleet. But we can certainly do that. You're right. You will get that rebate upfront on a leased vehicle. You'll get the same rebate if you purchase it as well. And so we would still be recommending purchase because of the longevity of the vehicle. Right now, we're leasing them for 5 years, and so we're fully depreciating them and kind of losing out on that value because that's right when the car starts to really return on investment. So, yeah.
What is
we would
your
pursue both.
timing on this then for purchase?
We would like to start purchasing some of the 23 backlog that we have. We've got 18 vehicles to purchase for 23, and we would like to start shifting some of those. We know it's going to be at least 8 months out before they're delivered, and we're hopeful that that will coincide with the EV chargers. We need the charging infrastructure in place to make them work, obviously. So we're going to try and time that perfectly.
So they're thinking that January 1st, there'll be a whole bunch of other new models that will be
We're
included.
We're
I'm
hopeful.
sure you're not thinking about buying Chevy Bolts before they go off the market. You're thinking about far more expensive vehicles.
Well, and they've come down in price a lot. You can get a Hyundai Ioniq, which has all-wheel drive. You can get a Kia Niro. You can get all the way up to a Ford F-150 Lightning. So there's
The
all.
Kia, Hyundai are not eligible for rebates.
Correct. But the pricing on them is really low. So it's about $27,000 for some of those vehicles.
Okay, all right, just so we're all,
Yeah, we'll get the best deal possible.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm delighted to see the direction that we're headed. Anything that offsets some of the toxic energy that Commerce City contributes to this region, I think is an important step for us to be taking.
Sure.
Thank you.
Councilmember Chacon?
Thank you. I'm completely supportive. We run a clean transportation with nothing but BIPOC NGOs for environmental justice for specifically this. So we help for the ATCC to pass some of these things too. How can we help support you for infrastructure for specifically charging stations? Because the biggest thing we're hearing is people wanting to get back their EV vehicles because they're so frustrated not being able to find charging stations.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've got the plan for the city facilities, and then we want to start working with Electrify America and other private companies to get them attracted to come into Commerce City and start installing those on their own. They will usually give, I don't want to misquote for them, they will usually give some free charging upfront to residents, but I don't want to misquote them on that. So we want to partner with them if possible, and we'll bring those proposals to you and talk to you about that in detail.
Sweet. Thank you.
Sure.
For council.
Thank you so much for this. This is extremely exciting to me. So I had also heard that the state was going to do 7,500 too. So that's what Steve said. So my husband said, so.
But he sent me the info.
Oh, he did. So
Yeah.
he must have quoted himself. I'll have to point that out to him gently, very gently. So also, when our battery went on our Prius, we were able to refurbish it. So we had almost 300,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
And now we're starting over again, and it only costs us less than $2,000 to have it refurbished. And so, I mean, we are getting our use out of that car totally. So I'm just so glad to see that you're headed in this direction. As far as leasing, how do we start doing that? I mean, do we have to renew our lease with the existing company, or what are we gonna do?
So the
there?
master agreement was approved in December of last year for 5 years. That doesn't mean you have to lease all your vehicles through them, it just means you can. And like I said, we've got about 165 leased, but half of those are month to month. So for half of those, you could terminate that
Okay.
lease at the end of the month. So there's flexibility.
And Jeff and I have been talking about how to, like he said earlier, slowly sunset the vehicles that we have on those month to months.
Uh-huh.
And as we continue to build the infrastructure for EVs, that we start to make some attributable gains. you'll see some of these requests for additional EV vehicles during the 2024 budget with assignment to departments and or to new positions as they come up. So he's got a strategic approach of how he wants to apply this. in the city.
I appreciate being strategic as well, really do. So when we buy new ones or purchase, those will all be EVs, so the combustion engines will be leased and then gradually, is that how it's gonna work or
There's a
what?
better return on investment for the EVs, so it would be better for us financially to do that model.
So that's the
We don't
direction.
have to, but it would be better.
No, I was, I want you to do that, or I do anyway, and I think there are other council members who feel the same way. Thank you so much for this.
Councilmember Madera.
So until we get those charging stations, are we thinking hybrid and as we
Yeah.
get the,
Yeah, exactly.
because I know Denver had a problem because they bought all these EVs, but then they didn't have the infrastructure to charge them.
Right.
And so they couldn't use them.
Right.
And then what they ended up doing is taking the charging stations that they had for employees and use them for city vehicles. So I just don't want us to be in that.
Yeah, we'll make sure we've got the structure there.
He's smarter than that.
And as far as like, because we do fall in two utilities, are we able to get charging stations quicker, through added power if we put something in, that jurisdiction or?
Not that I've found, and even if we pay for it ourselves, which is very expensive, you're still beholden to them to come out and help you with the subsurface infrastructure. So I mean, we were talking probably 6 figures or something, I think, Sean, we were thinking. So even if we threw that carrot out there, it's just a backlog. A lot of cities are doing this.
Yes, well, yeah, I'm supportive. I think, whenever we can get our investment, get that return, because you're right. 5 years is usually when you pay it off and then, you're
Turn it
finally
back in.
starting to make a return.
Yeah.
At least you're just cycling through them.
It's the worst time.
You just mentioned something, I think this triggered this thought here. You said hybrid vehicles is the way you're gonna go first.
Sure.
So you have 19 vehicles that's leased by, those are the 19 vehicles you're gonna look at trying to swap out? Is that what I'm hearing?
We have 18 for 2023 that still need to be purchased, 16 from 22 that still need to be purchased, so we could look at hybrids for those.
So you're looking at swapping from gas to hybrid, then from hybrid to electric.
Yes.
And so when you go from gas to hybrid, what does that cost? And then what's gonna cost? Because then you have to get rid of those hybrids, right? To go electric.
Yeah, now we can color that in the lease with Enterprise. So we can structure a different lease with Enterprise than the 5 years, I believe. We would want to go and give them that opportunity. I think they would take it. And have that coincide with when we think the charging stations are going to be up and operable. So
And that's my next question. When was that planned, I guess, for the charging station supposed to happen?
So they're underway now, but Excel's lead time is about 12 months.
12 months.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get rid of the gas vehicles now, move into hybrid vehicles, so we're gonna pay extra, I'm
Well,
assuming.
these are for the vehicles we haven't ordered yet. So the vehicles that have.
But
not
we're
been
gonna order hybrids, then we're gonna remove those hybrids and order electric vehicles.
Yeah. So I can tell you the prices on those if you'd like.
You can, yeah, please,
A Camry hybrid is around $27,000 on state bid.
okay?
An electric vehicle, an electric Leaf is around $27,000, a Volt is around $27,000.
So we're gonna spend 27,000 for the hybrid, or are we just gonna lease it?
Lease.
We're gonna lease it. Okay, I just wanna make sure that, yeah, I wasn't sure if you were talking about buying it and then paying spend another 27 grand on an electric vehicle, you know what I'm saying? So I just wanna make sure of that. All right.
You'll learn about me on all about return on investment, so
That scared me for a minute when you talked about that. Okay, all right, that's all I had. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, and I think this is a great presentation, but would you mind going back to slide 4, because I did have a few questions about the acquisition of value. Which one was that?
The 15.5 million.
Yeah, that
Oh, I'm
one where it
sorry.
says the
There we go.
15,
Yeah.
yeah. Can you give a breakdown of what that includes or what?
That's what we are valuing our current fleet at, the cost of the entire fleet. So if we were to come to you and say, let's replace the whole thing right now, you'd have to come up with $15.5 million, which would be really hard to do.
Okay, so does that include the 165 vehicles?
Yes.
in that? Okay. All right, and then it mentioned this, the 16 or the 19 vehicles for the police department. Is that included in that too?
Right, those have already come in this year.
And then the slide where it talked, I guess my slide numbers are different. I think it's slide 5, where it mentions the grants for 10 additional EV charging stations. I know you
Yes.
said it's about a year out.
We'll hear back from that grant in a few months.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. When will we know?
We should know in a few months, right, Sean?
September.
September, yeah.
And my other concern is, what if we don't get the grant? Do we have a backup plan?
So the charging stations that we're installing now are called level 2. We'll have the subsurface infrastructure to put in level 3. And we can put it in level 3, especially at the fleet facility. A level 3 will charge to 80% in about 30 minutes. So that's fast enough for us to circle through all of our fleet pretty efficiently. Now, also, range is much higher right now. So electric vehicle range now in standard models is around 250 miles. We don't have many vehicles in Commerce City that we run through 250 miles too often. So we get a level 3 charger, we've got 250 in range. You can also get all-wheel drive at 250 range. So there's a lot of options to keep our team functioning and keep those vehicles charged very quickly, even when you don't get a lot of charging stations.
Okay, so, but what I'm saying, if we don't qualify for the grants, where's the money gonna come from to get the charging stations?
So we already have funding for 2 at the Eagle Point Rec Center, 2 at the Civic Center, and 1 at the MSC. So those 5 are already funded. And those are
I see what I'm saying though, like I said, so you're saying if you're not gonna start buying any electrical vehicles until we get the grants for the additional ones, because my concern, are we gonna start buying all these electrical cars and then we don't have anywhere to charge them?
Yeah, what I meant to say is we won't start buying them until our 5 chargers are closer to being completed. So once we have those 5 chargers, I'm pretty confident with that range that we'll be able to keep our serviceable all the time.
And then I know you said Excel is part of the problem, but I know we've been waiting almost 2 years for the 2 at Eagle Point and here. So do we know when those are gonna be in? Is it because of Excel or?
It's just Excel. Yeah,
Excel?
it's just Excel.
That's my concern, like I said, having all these vehicles sitting, and then another question to of all the vehicles that we own in the city, or that the city actually has, I mean, do we own any of them or all of them leased?
We own some of them.
And so when they get older, what do we do with those?
We put them on a life cycle schedule and we'll take them to auction them off.
Okay, great, because it was interesting, I just found out today at the CML conference that there is companies that does auction old vehicles. So
Sure.
that is all I have. So it seems like sorry, Councilmember Doug.
No, that's all right. I was gonna ask, what's the average number of miles that are driven by city vehicles?
So I don't know. So I know it's less than 250 a day.
It's
So,
less than 250.
yeah. So we also have a utilization study as part of this fleet analysis, but they haven't completed it yet. So that'll be critical for us too, to see what the utilization is. And then we can assign these to the lower utilization units first to make sure there's no issues there.
Right, and I know, so I have a 1998 Acura that I just put back on the road, but the reason that I've been saving it is because I want to convert it to electric one day, and now I found out that there is even like a $2,000 incentive towards that, but I don't know if it would be worth it to take vehicles that have been on the road in this capacity
Sure.
and convert them, that's different than just having a personal vehicle. But is that something that you could maybe explore just a little bit?
Yeah, I don't know much about that, but I'll look.
All right, fantastic, thank you.
Councilmember Hurst.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think part of the utilization discussion, mileage and everything else is, I think CDOT has a program and they're willing to share some of the information that they've learned. I know Tom, who's our the light fleet administrator, I'll get you his contact. Has gone through all the iterations of charging, we're now trying to purchase Silverados, have to go upgrade your whole charging stations. So it's better, let's learn from all of that.
Yeah.
I think it's, obviously it's the state, so they're gonna share that information freely.
Yeah. Great.
And so in terms of all the different types of models that are available that the state fleet has, it's all done through DPA, the Division of, or Department of Public Affairs or Personnel Administration, sorry. They manage the whole state's fleet. And so I think that there's been an effort to make that data, if you will, very available to local municipalities. And I think we should utilize that because we can say, what are our needs for this job type, this job type, this job type? And they can really tell you what models meet those demands.
That's great.
And that really, I think, can help us save money in the long run and not make us fight that same fight.
Yeah,
that
that's
they've already
perfect.
fought.
I'll reach out to you for that contact.
Okay.
Like that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And Mr. Maxwell, I just had one other question, because later on tonight, we have coming up in the financial report, it mentioned that it stated like in one of the slides that there was no federal award findings for Commerce City. So that's why I was just concerned with the grants. How are we gonna guarantee if even federal grants we haven't received? So are we pretty confident we're gonna get the grant for the 10 additional EVs?
We feel pretty good about it. And again, I would look at some partnerships with private charging firms for residents across the city, not necessarily on our properties, but there are a lot of collaboratives. ChargePoint is collaborative with Adams County. ChargePoint's collaborative with CU Boulder. So CU charges a 1/10 of what they would normally charge to their students. So there are other means we can look to if we don't get those grants.
So would you guys, if we didn't get the grants, would that come back to us at like another time, how we're gonna get this approved then?
Yes,
So-
yeah, absolutely. We're in the infancy of this and we're gonna have to come back to you a lot and talk to you along the way. I'd like to come back another time and talk about a solar farm too, so, but that's another conversation.
I think then we have the basic direction to proceed. forward.
All right, thank you.
So, thank you. Next, we're going on to the custodial services program discussion, and we already have Mr. Maxwell present and Sean Cole. So if they want to continue with the next presentation.
Yes, thank you, council. So this is about the custodial services. I'm going to give you background, current state, future state, and next steps on this as well. You may recall there was a study session about custodial services last November. The city had hired a consultant to look at the benefits of contracting custodial services versus bringing them in-house and providing them with our own staff. The recommendation at the time was for a hybrid option for 4 city employees and about 30 contracted employees. The study identified cost savings for that, and council went ahead and awarded a 1-year contract to that contractor for those custodial services. So I went back and listened to the study session, and it was pretty clear that there were some concerns raised by council. There was a discussion about the fact that it was brought to you in November and you had to make a decision in December, otherwise you would lose custodial services in January, so you felt pressured to make a decision. There was talk about how we could provide city level benefits if we brought this service in-house and provide that to potentially Commerce City residents as well and benefit them. Then lastly, there was a discussion about an opportunity to improve security and oversight of the custodial team by having them in-house and part of our employee pool. So those were just some of the concerns that were brought up. And we want to talk to you about options, how we can bring back more information to you and help you make a decision that you feel less rushed about and provide you some additional information. So like I said, you were kind of up against the wall in November. You had to award a contract in December, and you awarded that for a one-year contract for 8 buildings across our facilities. It also has an option for a one-year renewal, so that will expire in 23 and 23, and you can renew it in 24. So what we're proposing today is to take one of our larger buildings, the Municipal Services Center, and spend the next 6 months preparing to bring the custodial services at that building in-house. When the contract comes up for renewal in December, we can then just exclude one building and start providing those services in January of 2024. We feel like we can then come back to you in June, 6 months later, and let you know what our experience was, let you know how it went well, what challenges we faced, what we would need to do if you wanted us to expand that program. I personally feel it's really important that you get some real world data that applies to Commerce City and not just a consultant's analysis, which is kind of esoteric. And so this is one way we come back and give you some real information. It also provides us an opportunity to experiment with custodial services. We could look at providing them 3 days a week instead of 5. We can look at having our staff emphasize zero waste and diversion streams. We can have our staff measure diversion streams, and we can report back to you about how much our employees are participating in recycling, et cetera. We think there's a lot of options to bring you additional data and help you make an informed decision about custodial services. So this is an option. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that. I'm sure you're gonna have a lot of questions about it, but basically, we would prepare to do this for the rest of this year, modify the renewed contract in January of 2024. We would spend the next 6 months doing custodial services in-house for the Municipal Services Center, then come back to you in June and report our findings. And that would give you a good 6 months to make a decision before you feel pressured again to have to make another contract decision at the end of 2024. A little convoluted, so if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
This time, does any council members have any questions? Councilmember Pickles?
Thank you. I like this approach. I'm curious, why you chose this particular building as opposed to like the Civic Center?
Sure.
Because one of our concerns definitely was security.
Yeah.
And I would think that Civic Center would be a place where that would be a big concern. with-
Sure.
With bringing in outsiders who may not have this same kind of commitment to their job that somebody who was actually working for the city. So would you mind answering that question?
Sure. So I picked the Municipal Services Center because it wasn't the largest building. It felt like something we could take on, number one. Number two, there's not a lot of public traffic there. So the last thing I want to do is fail at this in front of the public.
Right.
We're going to be experimenting. We're going to be trying different scenarios. Our first team and me are going to be guinea pigs for you all. And I think we're all okay with that versus the public. So we kind of wanted to shield this from the public for that reason.
Appreciate the answer. Makes sense.
Councilmember Hurst?
I do like the approach. My only concern has ever been, it's a real tough business to hire and manage turnover in.
Yes.
And so I like that, that's where I definitely agree with you on using this building. Let's do what we're let's stay on the same path. This is my opinion, but I think that's gonna be the challenge is, do we put more effort in continuing hiring efforts? Because of, it's not just us. I mean, it's been because we actually might have better retention because we're a city that provides benefits, but it's just my best friend's parents owned a business and that was just like they constantly were hiring no matter what, even if they're fully staffed, it's gonna turn over and they didn't pay like bad. And so it's just a business that I think is a stepping stone for a lot of people in their life. And I think that's a great business to run, but it just creates its own challenges. And so I just don't want it to, that would say is my number one concern. I'm sure you guys are going into it eyes wide open, but that's what I want to hear back. It's like, how are we doing on hiring? How much effort, are we getting what we would expect for the effort that we're putting in? Same with, anything, but that's where, I think that's why we were going contract before, is because there's a little more reliability. If someone calls off, they have a kind of call list, or they can pull from another place and so on and so forth. You can manage that a bit better. We won't be able, we would have to overhire, and that would become costly to be able to manage in a similar fashion. And so love the idea of keeping it kind of out of the direct public eye, where we can, work through those issues. But I do think if we move and we expand, that allows us to be able to pull from one to the other and things like that, to be able to manage it very similarly as you would if you were, contract cleaning service type of thing. So that was my concern last time, is that we just don't have that flexibility. So if we can just monitor that, that's the only part I really honestly care about.
Yeah, and I could share a little bit about what I did for Molder when I managed that, which was, instead of overhiring, which is what companies normally do, we would figure out the lowest level of service that everybody was comfortable with. We'd provide the higher level, and then when we had people call out, we would drop to the lower level. And then we took surveys of staff to see if it was impacting their daily lives or if they're upset. They never were. So we found a lot of flexibility just in changing the level of service. And what I mean is, instead of cleaning 5 days a week, we might clean 3. Very few people noticed it, and I didn't have to overhire. That's one strategy. The second strategy, which I'm most proud of, was we had custodians that were trapped in a custodian position. It was my most diverse group, and they got the lowest pay in the county, and it was just something that needed to be fixed. So I worked with HR last year, and we put in tiers. So we gave them succession planning, because a lot of them really wanted to stay in custodial, in the custodial field. So they could become custodial 1, 2, 3 supervisor, and it gave them a path forward to make a lot more money, to have some pride in advancing and not feeling like they were the group that had the lowest pay for various reasons. Yeah, so just a couple of ideas.
I like that too. I would say the only other thing that I was going to bring up, from a positive side, I do think, being able to manage this is going to benefit all of us, but it's a culture thing too. I've raised concerns several times where I work. It's like I can throw away my trash and wipe my desk down. You don't need to touch my office. So if all of us could commit to that, I don't really want you touching my office. So can I lock my door type of thing? I think if we set the culture, I think you need less service. Of course, I'm not saying you should finish your day off by cleaning the bathroom, but I do think cleaning up after yourself and setting that expectation is not wild. I don't know what you guys, vacuuming, sure, but like I can dump my trash every day. And having that expectation for people for the janitorial services is a waste of money, in my opinion. And so just setting that culture. I'm not saying that's what the city's currently doing. I'm just making an example of something that I experienced. And I just think setting that type of example and setting that type of pride in your work, no matter where you're at in the organization, on like taking care of your space, not that tough of a thing to push across. So I think doing that would be.
I agree. And we can even look at core services of restrooms, places where we wouldn't do cleaning ourselves. But I would like to work with the city, with all of you, and develop a zero waste action plan, that does minimize our footprint and how we handle our trash and everything else. So that is something I'm hopeful we'll be working with you over the next year. But I agree with everything you said.
Yeah, I specifically think with hybrid work too, where you have 2 or 3 days in the office and 2 days at home. Man, keeping your space clean is not that tough. I think, and we use way less paper today than we did pre-COVID. So All those things I think make it easier and reduce our need for 5-day-a-week janitorial service.
I agree.
Thank you very much. Sure. And I want to also thank you for both presentations. Because it's refreshing that you've only been here since April and you bring things forward in a way that provides options and thinking about it rather than sort of flat out no's.
Sure.
We're headed in the right direction and I really appreciate it. Appreciate Jason's leadership and we're on a good path.
Nice. I feel like George Costanza, I should exit.
Take a
Now
nap
don't
on your
mess up.
desk.
Do any other questions?
No, I was just gonna say that I was supportive and I do like this kind of tiered approach, right? It's like your golf swing, you don't change everything all at once. Or if you're me, you do and you play even worse. But, you know, yeah, I think it'd be good to see what we learn from this. And I know it's tough business. You know, you're gonna have to probably have someone supervising and have that call list to be able to provide that level of service. So it definitely makes sense to start there and then, you know, see what we learn and then next year, see if that's something that we want to pursue.
Perfect.
Councilmember Douglas?
Yes, and you're too tall to be George, so I'm sorry. Is there any possibility that we can offer like some part-time positions to still maybe think about providing benefits for those people?
Let me talk to HR. That's out of my wheelhouse, but I'll talk to HR.
Yeah, that would be really good because, I mean, I still, when we stay in any hotel, I put up the do not disturb sign the whole time. Not because I don't want people in my room, it's because I can clean it myself. I can make my own bed and I can do all that stuff. And if I need more towels, I mean, we keep the same towels the whole time. We're very conservative in what we use and how we use it. And then when we leave, I've cleaned hotel rooms. I strip the beds, I put all of the towels in one place and I just know how hard those people work. They work really, really hard. And you know, it's physical work. It's easier for younger people, but I see a lot of older people who are still in those positions because they have no choice and they have to be there. But they're working 40 and probably plus hours because they're short-staffed. And, you know, I think it would just give the city such a great reputation to show that we acknowledge hardworking people. And usually the people who work the hardest are the ones who make the least.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunately just that's the way life here is here in these good old United States. So if we could do maybe some innovative thinking, if you could explore those possibilities, I would really, really appreciate it because I appreciate those people who provide the services for us that other people don't want to do.
Yeah.
And if we could make them feel good about what they do because they know they're appreciated, I think the job would be so much easier for them.
Yeah, I will talk to HR about that. And just for reference, in Boulder County, we did offer benefits to custodians at 24 hours a week.
Really?
So,
Wow.
yeah, we try to make it as attractive.
Yeah,
as we
I'd like to see us follow
So
suit. then.
I'll bring that model. It's.
All right. Thank you for hearing me out. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember,
Oh,
are you finished? I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Ford, Audi.
You know what, I've seen multiple things happen over the years here where it was all in-house and where we handled it all. Then when we went out to contract, you know, my philosophy is I don't think the government should be in control of everything. I think there's services that you need to let the private sector be a part of. That's at least my personal beliefs. And so I thought the contractor path was the best. I'm okay doing this modified plan. I'm interested to see how that'll work. It's just that government can grow out of control when private sector is better at doing some things.
Sure.
And I'm interested to see how this modified plan will work. So I'm agreeable to give it a try.
Perfect, thank you.
Councilmember Kim?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with it. I think the phase approach makes sense. See how it goes. Come back to us later on and we'll see how, we'll see what happens.
All right, perfect.
Councilmember Schiffer?
I'm grateful for it, and I want to reiterate exactly what Councilmember Douglas also said. And any type of pathways, because it is kind of a stepping stone job for some people.
Yeah.
So other pathways to education, or if you see any other resources that can be interjected just in that space, so that it does become a class system. We just see how it is.
Yeah.
And I grew up in the same spaces as well too. So just any way that we can make our community feel like, hey, this is a job, yeah, you could take in our community, but here's other ways to be able to grow if this is a stepping stone for you. But yeah, I'm on the same.
Yeah, just one last anecdote on that, which was we would recruit from our custodians and offer to pay for their CDL licenses so they could become CDL drivers for our road maintenance team because we could never find road maintenance drivers.
Yeah.
And that was a really successful program for us as well. So there's a lot of ways we can attract people into.
Yeah. I would even CNA license for some people, so nursing, things
Yeah,
like that, if
yeah.
they're curious in other ways.
Yeah,
Just
right. Thank you.
And Councilmember Dare, did you have anything else to add?
No.
Okay, great. And then I just had, I agree with this team. Thank you for the presentation as well. It's nice to see something positive. But just wanted to make sure and add, if you would make sure, are you reaching out to a whole bunch of different custodial companies to compare rates and all? If you include that to make sure everyone has a option to try to, put a bid in for that. So, and it seems like the consensus, if you can go to the last slide, that all council agrees to, and I think is all the council's in agreement with the timeline for June 2024. So proceed.
Okay, we will do that.
Thank you.
You bet.
Next, we are going to move on to the presentation of the 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, and I'd like to invite Teresa Wilson, Interim Finance Director, forward to give the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to present the city's 2022 audit information. Materials in your packet for this topic include the financial audit presentation, which our financial auditors are here to present remotely tonight, the independent auditor's letter, which summarizes the auditor's opinions of the city's financial statements and related notes to the financial statements, the single audit report, which details required work related to federal funds, and the management's discussion and analysis, which provides a high-level and user-friendly summary of the city's 2022 financials. Plant Moran is the audit firm hired to complete the independent audit of the city's financial statements. This is their second year completing the city's audit. The annual audit is a lengthy process. It began with preliminary year-end work last fall and was just completed on June 15th. I would like to thank our finance staff for their efforts throughout the year. Completing the audit and financial statements would not be possible without their hard work. Hard copies of the 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, ACFR, will be distributed to you as soon as they're printed and available. In the meantime, you can find a link to the electronic version on the city's website within the council communication for this agenda item. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Timothy St. Andrew, our audit engagement partner, and Nicolette Acho, our senior audit manager, to you. They are here with us remotely tonight and will present additional 2022 audit information. We will also welcome any questions that you have, and anything that we don't have the ability to answer on the spot tonight, we will definitely follow up and do the required research to get complete answers back to you, but we'll certainly answer whatever we can this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Teresa, and good evening,
That's
council
okay.
members. I appreciate you having us here tonight to present the results of the December 31st, 2022.
Hey, Jordan, mess it up. What's going on?
You are not the one to say that.
No, can't hear him.
Hold on 1 second, Tim.
And you password fax tag.
What'd you say?
Fractal tag.
Just testing it out. Can you hear me now?
Technology is wonderful, but not perfect, right?
Just confirming you can't hear me now, right? Still?
What to use them. If my husband were here, he would have some good dad jokes for you.
He would have
The
one.
mayor was
The
here. You
mayor.
probably have
He
some
would
good
have
dad
some dad
jokes,
jokes.
right?
So I always say I have a smartphone. Unfortunately, you have
Hey,
to have
Tim
something smart.
and Nicolette, I just want to let you know we're having a little bit of AV issues and we're working on it right now.
That should be good. See if we can hear you now or. Tim, can you hear us?
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Pretty loud. Can you turn down?
Word to God.
Okay, so good to go now?
Wonderful, thank you. Sorry for the,
Hey, count to 5 for us, please.
I'm an auditor. I don't know if I can count that high.
Is that good right there?
is that a good volume?
That's good. I think it's good. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Sorry for the technical glitch, Tim.
That's quite all right. So you can hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us here tonight to present the results of the December 31st, 2022 financial statement audit and single audit. As Teresa mentioned, my name is Tim St. Andrew, and with me is Nicolette Acho. And as noted on this slide here and briefly covered by Teresa, we do have 3 deliverables that we'll be briefly covering this evening. Number 1 is the financial statement audit. We'll refer to them as the financial statements or the annual comprehensive financial report, as well as a high-level summary. Number 2 would be the required post-audit communications. And lastly would be the federal single audit, which is the audit of the city's federal awards. Before we get into these deliverables, I would first like to take the opportunity to thank the city team Teresa, Cheryl, Sue, really the whole team that we had worked with throughout these audits, just for their help during the audit. It really starts from our standpoint back in January and February, and probably well before that for the city team. But when that year-end process close starts, it really is a 4 to 5 month timeline to really prepare for and complete an audit. And we certainly appreciate their efforts. So here, just given the size and various components of the financial statements, we thought it'd be helpful to briefly cover the main components of the financial report. So first here, we do have the auditor's report letter. This is really, when you would look at the 200+ page document, these are really the 3 pages that belong to us. Everything else belongs to the city, is prepared by the city. But this would be our opinion on the report. And our opinion doesn't cover whether the numbers or the information presented is good or bad, only that the numbers and disclosures are materially accurate in accordance with the applicable accounting requirements. And then we have the management's discussion and analysis, and this is a summary of the city's financial information. It includes comparisons to the prior year. It includes information on financial highlights, covers any budget variances, and does have some limited information on the city's debt and city's capital assets. And then really the meat of the financial report would be the basic financial statements and the footnotes. And these financial statements would include the balance sheet, the income statement, and for the enterprise funds, the cash flow statements. And then as you work your way back, you'd have the required supplemental information, the other supplemental information, and that would be your budgetary comparison schedules and your combining financial statements. And then lastly, rounding out the financial report would be the statistical section, and a lot of good information on both financial and non-financial trends in that section. Next slide, please, Teresa. Thank you. So as it relates to the auditor's opinion letter, the city did receive an unmodified opinion, which means that it's a clean opinion. Again, we're not stating that the numbers are good or bad, just that they are materially accurate. They are following the applicable accounting standards, and that the users of the financial statements can rely on these financial statements. We did have 2 emphasis of matter paragraphs this year. One related to the GASB 87, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, number 87 implementation, and this related to leases. And as part of this implementation, the city had to evaluate all of the existing leases that were in place to figure out, number one, whether they were even scoped into GASB 87. And after that legwork was done, if the answer was yes, they had to account for these leases differently than in years past. And so this was a pretty significant exercise for all people involved. The city really did a nice job. Teresa and her team did a great job on implementing and making sure that the right analysis was done, the right documentation was in place, and ultimately that the right conclusions were reached. The second emphasis of matter paragraph related to a restatement of the housing authority net position due to an ownership change that occurred in 2022. In this case, the restatement was really as a result of how the accounting rules are written. It doesn't mean that the numbers from the 2021 report were wrong, because they were right based on the ownership in place at the end of last year. But because of the ownership change this year, the rules require that we restate beginning of the year, because we have to account for that ownership change as if it happened at the beginning of the year. As far as the audit results, Nikki will cover the post-audit communication in a later slide, but we are pleased to say that we had no audit findings this year. So again, kudos to your team for that. And Teresa, there you go, thank you. And on this slide, we have net position trends. And as you can see, the city has experienced 8 straight years of net position growth. And when we speak of net position, it's really the ending equity after all assets, both current and long-term, and all liabilities are factored in together. And as you can see here, the total net position was about $438 million. And net investment in capital assets continues to make up the largest portion of the net position, right at about $205.9 million at the end of the year. This would be the city's capital assets. So the infrastructure, the vehicles, less any capital related debt gets us to that net investment number. And the unrestricted net position follows closely behind with a balance of $173.2 million at the end of the year.
This next slide, this gives an overview of the statement of activities. So the change in net position for the city overall was 26.2 million over prior year. Capital grants and contributions increased about 19 million, primarily due to donated infrastructure. Property taxes increased this year, primarily as a result of increased taxable values and millage rates. And then expenses increased about $9 million over prior year, with the most significant changes in the public safety, public works, and recreation departments. And those are mostly due to personnel costs and charges from the internal service funds. The next slide provides a summary of the general fund's fund balance components as of December 31st. So non-spendable, which comprises inventory and prepaid expenses as of year end, accounts for $250,000. Restricted fund balance, which is the fund balance that's restricted for use by an external source, makes up about 17.8 million. Assigned fund balance, which is fund balance that's earmarked by the city for a particular use, accounts for 4.4 million. And then unassigned fund balance, which is what's truly available to the city to spend, is the most significant component of it at 63.7 million. So in total, the general fund's fund balance is 86.3 million. And if we look at total unassigned fund balance as a percentage of your annual expenditures, you're right at about 73%. This next slide, so this provides highlights from the end of audit letter that was issued in conjunction with our audit opinion, and really closes the loop on our required communication that we have to have under the auditing standards. And so, as Tim mentioned, there were no significant findings in the current year. There were also no transactions entered into by the city lacking authoritative guidance, no significant transactions that have been recognized in a different period than when the transaction occurred. There were no difficulties encountered in us performing the audit, and we had no disagreements with management during the course of our procedures. And then this last slide. So the other audit that we performed along with the financial statement audit is the federal single audit, which is required of any organization that spends more than $750,000 of federal funding in a given year. So this year, the city spent about $1.4 million of federal awards, and we were required to test one major program, which was the highway planning and construction cluster. We did issue an unmodified opinion on the single audit, and again, identified no issues that rose to the level of a finding needing to be communicated here. And so high.
Oh, go ahead, Nikki, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say high level. That's what we had ready to present. So open to any questions that you might have.
So that is a high-level summary of hundreds and hundreds of hours of work by our finance staff. We also get help from departments as well, and our audit team has been a great support during this process. But we welcome any questions you have, and we will answer anything we can tonight, and anything we can't answer on the spot, we will follow up with you and get you a complete answer as quickly as possible.
So thank you, Teresa, Timothy, and Nikki for the presentation. And at this time, do any council members have any questions? Councilman over there.
Yeah, no, my question is just kind of, in general, the net change and so one of them was the net position of business activities. There's a pretty significant swing. It's not huge dollar wise compared to government activities, but can you explain what drove that change?
Yeah, the business type activities are comprised of our one enterprise fund, which is the solid waste fund. We don't do any expenditures out of that fund, but we do transfers out of that fund into the capital expenditures fund for capital projects that are eligible for that funding source, mainly transportation and road projects. The other business type activities are the 3 internal service funds that we have for fleet, facilities, and IT. And those are fed by internal transfers from user departments into those funds. And that activity can fluctuate from year to year as well, based on planned uses of those funds and activities within those funds. So just at a very high level, but we can certainly follow up with more detail on that.
Yeah, and then the other one was, the general fund decreased almost 25%. That was decreased to 26 million. Is there something specifically that was driving that
Yeah.
decrease?
Some of that was based on the expenditures approved by city council. A good chunk of it was the amount that we transferred to the capital expenditures fund for the golf clubhouse. Some of it too was the transfer that we did to move the audit revenue from last year over into the capital expenditures fund for potential future use on the police substation up north that we wanted to save and start pulling some money for. So those were two big examples of the drawdown of those funds.
So, encumbered but not,
Yeah,
yeah. And then the other thing too, just, in general, kind of notice a trend with increased costs, almost across the board, except for finance, so thank you for that. Overall, it looked like we increased costs, 9 million, or expenditures, I think was the right words. And then our revenue also decreased by 1.3 million. Reading MD&A, it looks like a lot of this is being attributed to costs of salaries and wages. Is there any more color that you could provide for,
yeah, part of that increase are the natural growth increases of salaries increasing based on, performance evaluation, increases awarded for existing staff. And a lot of it too is related to the additional positions we've added across the city. So we have added, positions in pretty much every department over the past 2 years, and that does lead to future increases when we add those positions.
and so is this something that we're budgeting to continue this trend?
We budget as well as possible every year, and we always balance to revenue projections rather than balance revenue to expenditures. So we always try to exhibit that good fiscal stewardship and make the best use of those dollars. But we project revenues and expenditures to the best of our ability, which is tricky, as part art and science, because there's not a crystal ball. But yes, we are always watching that. And then as the year unfolds, every month, we are doing budget reports for every department. And we're monitoring actuals to budget to make sure if there are any negative trends we need to be aware of, we're catching those quickly so that we have the ability to address them mid-year rather than have surprises at year-end.
And I guess that's, my next question is, these things are on a collision course where revenue is trending the wrong way and expenses are also trending the wrong way. So is this something that we've evaluated to, kind of have some longer term projections or any forecasts?
Absolutely. We monitor every month as the month closes, but we would certainly benefit from doing some longer term projections and trying to figure that out. And that's really tricky too. I've been a part of such exercises at other local governments I've worked for, and it's really hard to project. Sometimes it's hard to project for the next year, but to try and do long-term projections for 3, 5, 10 years, it's really hard. Like, how do we know when we're truly going to hit the next recession? How do we know, I don't think any of us saw COVID coming, really 4 or 5 months before it was here. And so things like that can have material impacts on our local economy here. But we would certainly benefit from a long-term financial exercise. I know we've done one in the past, and we could dust that off and revisit that and figure out a way to do that moving forward.
So interestingly enough, we are working with Economic and Planning Systems, EPS, on what I call a sustainable development model. So looking at, as we continue to grow as a city, as we continue to have to provide the level of service for various departments to our community, what does that impact, and where do our revenues come in to assess that impact, as you're seeing with our budget. They're currently working on that and, knock on wood, hopefully aligns with the upcoming budget process. So that is just more information for you all to have as it relates to looking out over the next 3 to 5 years of what we're seeing, just because of some of the trends, some of the increases in various costs. I think at the same time as well that we want to start looking at is a development forecast. And that development forecast helps us when you think about some of the line for charge services, right? The things that we do with development review, the dips in that. Why is that? Is it because we're not pulling in as many building permits or as much development? So that helps us think about right sizing the organization as we go forward. To Teresa's point, in the course of the last 3 years, we've added 89 positions. So that's going to see a significant, impact on the costs that were mentioned earlier. And the reason for that is also we hadn't caught up with where we need to be able to provide that level of service that became an expectation for our community. A lot of that was at the time thinking, well, conservatively, we don't know when we're going to fall off the cliff. So let's not add position to where now we're looking at furloughs, we're looking at terminations or having to let people go. We've been very beneficial as a city to see that kind of unchecked growth that we've now had to catch up. But in that, now we have to start thinking about, now that we're there for the size of city that we are, what we anticipate being over the next 5 years, that we have to start thinking more strategically about how we, once again, deploy the staff that we have as opposed to just adding new staff year over year. And I think you kind of heard that today with the custodial services conversation. It's not necessarily adding more staff, it's deployment of existing staff and thinking about positions that we've had vacant and repositioning to be able to meet those needs. So there's going to be a much more robust conversation that you all are going to have with the 2024 budget in and around these very topics that you maybe haven't had in the most recent past.
And my final questions for the program revenues. What's driving the decrease in charges for services? And then what's the negative other revenue?
The negative other is driven by the $23 million negative market adjustment we had to make for our investment portfolio. We haven't sold any of our investments, so that is just a book entry. But it's something that we do have to account for in the manner we do. But that is the only reason for that negative in the other category is that market adjustment for our investment portfolio. What it means is our investments
At that specific point in time, we have to value our investments at the current market rate, and we have to do that at the end of each year. So it is a required book entry, but it is not realized unless we actually sell at that current value,
Right.
which we have not done. So
And we've recovered some since then.
correct, yeah.
It's directly related to the interest rate environment too. As we've seen interest rates go up, that affects
Yeah,
the
decreases
current
the
values
price.
of our investment portfolio, and that's why we have that negative entry. So, and then the program revenues, I'll have to look into and get a more detailed answer for you.
Thank you.
But I can definitely do that.
Councilmember Douglas. I have a low level question. Can you give me a simple definition of net positions?
Yeah, essentially, it is the value of the city's total assets less the city's total liabilities. Is our current net position in very simplistic terms.
That says total assets minus the liabilities.
Yeah, so if you were to take all of the city's assets, so your cash, you have accounts receivable, so consumers, businesses, they owe you property taxes, sales and use taxes. If you take all of the capital assets, all of the infrastructure, all of the land, all of these leases that we had talked about that the city had to implement. So all of the assets less any vendors that the city owes money to, any debt that the city has on the books, any leases payable. It's really the net of those two. So if you were to liquidate the city, if you were to go out of business and you just wanted to sell everything off and relieve all of your liabilities, the net position is what you'd be left with. So after you paid everyone off, that's really your ending equity at the end of the day, what you'd have.
Thank you, Tim. It's kind of like talking to the Wizard of Oz here. So I hope that you are not like the wizard behind the curtain. Thank you.
And the city has liquid and non-liquid assets. So some of our assets are the building we're in, you know, not readily spendable.
Right.
And then we have plenty of cash assets.
So this would be a non-liquid asset. Okay, and money in the bank is
liquid.
So how would like bonds be seen?
Yeah, so bonds are a liability, the outstanding principal. That's
Outstanding principal is a liability.
everything we owe on our remaining bond issuances are liability. It's something we would have to pay off to get to that net position.
Thank you.
Mhm.
In the city, having positive unrestricted net position is, it wouldn't be uncommon for cities for that to be a negative number, because there are a lot of cities across the country that have these huge pension liabilities, these huge retiree healthcare liabilities that when you look at it, they may have positive net position because their capital asset base is so large. But once you back that out and you look at the actual unrestricted net position, many communities are actually in a deficit.
But that's not us.
That is not you.
Councilmember Kim.
Hey, so first and foremost, Tim, Nicolette, Teresa, most important, Teresa, thank you so much for the presentation. Just a few other questions I have, and I may have missed it. Were there any, during the audit, was there any areas of non-compliance? And if so,
No, there were not.
Go ahead.
No, there were not.
There were not. What about with any, were there any like recommendations for improvement areas at all?
We do have some, so I'll say non-internal control items that just as we go through the audit, things that we talk with Teresa and Cheryl about, things to keep in mind for future years. Yes, a short answer.
Would you be able to say what they are, or do you know what they are right now?
Yeah, I don't have the list in front of me, but I know a few things that we've talked about. So GASB 34 is one area that I know we've talked about. Right now it's manually, so the city prepares that 200+ page document. It is prepared by the city, and the way that, so when we're talking about the general fund balance, that's actually done on the modified accrual basis of accounting. When we look at net position for these governmental activities, that's actually on the full accrual basis. And so there's a lot of work that the city has to do to convert from one basis of accounting to the second basis of accounting. And so we've had some discussions with the team on that, on just things to maybe make that conversion easier at year end. Now, the way that this process works now, it works. The team gets to the right answer, but we work with so many different communities that we try to just bring different things to their attention to try to save some time on their end.
Right now, we make those conversions on a number of work papers within our Act for workbook. Some local governments do them in a GASB 34 fund. It's like a logistical fund to help with the conversion process within the financial system itself. So there are different ways to do it than we currently do it. But as Tim said, the way we currently do it works and we get to the right answer. We're hesitant to make a big change to how we currently do that when we don't know if it's going to be 2 or 5 years from now, but at some point we're going to be talking about migrating to a new financial system. And so we're kind of hesitant to make a big change to that now when, when we migrate to a new financial system.
What's the financial system you guys currently,
New World.
New World?
It's a Tyler
So like
technology
similar to
system.
NetSuite or something?
Mhm.
I'm sorry. So, okay, and then the other question I had regarding, other than the recommendations, were there any other follow-up actions that had to be taken? That need to be taken? Or is a report that was provided done? It's good to go. You're gonna go celebrate kind of thing.
Yeah, margaritas.
Okay, Margarita's got it. So as my wife's a controller, right? So she handles about 10 accounts. On top of that, she has 5 other people under her as well who are accountants. They have rolling audits all the time, and I gotta say, I do not envy your job, Teresa, or even Timothy or Nicolette's job. But I appreciate everything you guys do and the presentation too. Thank you.
Do any other council members have any questions, comments? Yeah.
So I owe you an answer on the program revenues. Were there any unanswered questions that I missed? So I'll be sure to follow up on that and send that to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just let me know when you're doing margaritas.
Next, moving on to reports. At this time, I would like to invite our city manager, Mr. Rogers, to give his report.
Thank you, ma'am. First, out of the city manager's office, one request, I have actually 2 requests for you all tonight for you all to consider, but I'm making a request for a special meeting on July 31st to hold a joint meeting with the Water District to discuss the WaterWise workshop that was attended by Councilmember Noble with our staff, Mr. Jeff Maxwell and Jenna Hahn, to talk about recommendations and partnership going forward with the Water District with respect to a number of different topics that were discussed. Given that that would be a special meeting for holding that joint meeting, I require authorization and support from the council to be able to move that forward for the 31st. But I will circle back to that at the end of my update. Economic development, our staff is working with the Metro North Small Business Development Center and Google to provide 2 virtual training courses for small businesses this week. The first one being tomorrow. There will be an online training from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. called Get Up to Speed with Google Analytics. And Thursday, June 29th, there will be an online training from 12 to 1 called Grow with Google, Establish a Professional Domain, Website, and Email for Your Business. Any small business owner needing assistance with translation services, online access, or registration for either of these classes can send an email to sbrc@c3gov.com. With Public Works, mowing operations continue as we've had various microburst activity with heavy daily rain. Our mowing schedule that we have posted has drastically modified to keep up with the growth that's occurred with that. But our staff is staying on top of that. We typically were attacking that with one group. We've broken it out to multiple small groups, 2 small groups right now to address those on a daily perspective. We completed south properties, we're beginning north properties, and staff is also taking action to remove noxious weeds such as Russian olive trees. Most of those are long portions of 96th Avenue. So if you see our staff out there, they're trying to stay on top of the biologic that we have. With our streets team, hats off to them. We've had about half our staff focus on flood recovery operations the entire of last week. Obviously with the midweek substantial rains that occurred, required to repair numerous potholes throughout the city. We've had to use approximately 6 tons of easy street cold patching due to those rain events. We're hoping to be able to use hot mix because of the hotter temperatures that we're going to be experiencing this week that will have a longer term repair and life. We have also seen some washout of shoulders along Peoria, 112, 117th Avenues, along Bill Craig Boulevard, so we're working to address that. We've also had the rain events take down a couple of signs, which we've replaced and tried to refresh striping in and around those signs to call attention to those locations. What you will also just kind of share with you on 96th Avenue, that's the Big Bertha in the room. I have to say thank you to Sean. He's been staying on top of my high flood district. He's been working with them out in the field on trying to navigate, which has been a dynamic situation, obviously with things both upstream that happen in Aurora that come floating down us, no pun intended, to address. But with where we stand today, we are hoping that we will be back open with controlled usage of 96th Avenue by Friday morning, if I'm not mistaken. So thank you to the team. And like I said, if you've seen the pictures that he's been taking, he's been out there on weekends. There's a lot of water that was flowing through it, and his leadership with Mile High Flood to kind of make that diversion allowed us to, even though it'll be delayed a couple of weeks, it could be a lot worse. We're hearing from other communities that are delayed another 3 to 6 months with at most another 12 to 26 roads closed. So fortunate to have Sean and his leadership to kind of help make sure that we're trying to get this road open and staying open with other roads. With PRG, we had Music in the Park and Chalk It Up Thursday. That was at Veterans Memorial Park. Music was by Remezcla, a mix of Latin pop hits. We had approximately 300 guests. So a lot of kudos to just having that amount of our residents out. I do not have numbers from Movie in the Park that was done at Paradise Island on Friday. I did hear that there were a lot of screaming kids due to the Mario Brothers movie that was played. So kudos to that. Our next Music in the Park is Thursday, June 29th at Turnberry Park, where the music will be by Chris Daniels and the Kings. Fork Fest, Tuesday, July 4th at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, family activities and fireworks. We as the city are going to switch it up a little bit this year, do a little bit something different. So you're going to see our road crews out there in advance of Fork Fest, and we're going to be painting the crosswalks colors of the Colorado Rapids. I think once again, trying to be able to just show our support for the local team, but also I think it's an opportunity for us to kind of expand how we think about crosswalks and how those can serve as other ways of being able to interact with our community and be able to show some cultural pride about who we are as a community. So our goal is to start with 6 before the 4th, starting at the stadium, working out the prominent intersections. Obviously, we'll be mindful of MUTCD for public safety, but once again, it's a great opportunity for us once again to explore something that we've not done as a city and see how we can kind of build that out over the course of a year for other opportunities throughout. Paradise Island Pool was open for the 2023 summer season on Thursday. Another screaming kids being able to join the pool. Bison Ridge Pool reopened on the Thursday as well. And then Eagle Point Pool, we're still working through the dehumidification unit. That's important for just the atmosphere and the environment in there. We're also hoping to have that back open this Friday. PD is working on an agreement to join the Mountain West Cyber Fraud Task Force that will allow us to work with the U.S. Secret Service to dramatically increase our ability to process digital and forensic evidence in-house. We have our new mobile command post that's arrived, but is obviously now not currently in our parking lot, but will be in our parking lot. It's being wrapped with Commerce City information. And I'd like to also tip my hat to the chief who just appointed a new deputy police chief. That is Dennis Flynn that was selected. So congratulations, Deputy Chief Flynn. Community relations, we are continuing to work on an outreach campaign to garner public feedback on how to use the remaining ARPA funds. I'm also, for my second request, would like to bring back an amendment to the direction that you all received, because we have obviously an emergency rental assistance program that was approved in the 2023 budget. That was approved for $250,000. We had the ability to serve 68 residents out of that 250, but we have 24 additional residents seeking help from the city as part of that program on our wait list. We believe we can use the ARPA dollars in support of those 24 residents, which would bring a request from my office to you all to about $500,000 to help close those residents out and to close the program out while we're also thinking long-term on the best approach. Staff is also helping, so that's my second request. Staff is also helping to plan and promote the fourth and final council ward town hall, which is this Wednesday at South Lawn Elementary from 6 to 7:30 p.m., which will be hosted by Councilmember Noble. Our community relations is also working together with the Cultural Council and PRG, or Parks Rec and Golf, as I discussed earlier, about the second Music in the Park event. And the staff is pleased to report that the milkweed leaves on Tower Road, south of east of 104th Avenue, was successfully reinstalled using funds from the city's public art program. And that concludes my report for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Registrar. I asked anyone else if they have questions first. Do you know what time on the 31st and how long would the meeting be for the 31st?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but we would hold it at the typical time that we do our regular meetings, and we anticipate that that would be somewhere between an hour and a half to 2 hour discussion between council and the Water District Board based on the recommendations and discussion in the presentation from the workshop.
A couple of questions for you. Number one, what do you mean by controlled opening on Friday morning for 96th?
So using flaggers, because there is some lane striping that will have to be redone, obviously with the washout. So we're able to accomplish that lane striping, as well as being able to allow traffic to be able to operate. So that's what control is.
Okay. Another question I have, this might be better directed towards Mr. Tolbert, but I'll just ask anyways. For code enforcement, whenever there are like weeds or anything of that issue that occurs in like common areas, we're talking like that's not owned by the homeowner at all. And of course, when a resident actually reports the issue, you know, they typically will come and someone from whoever owns that area will come and just mow it down. Weeds come up again. It's a systemic problem, right? It happens over and over again. Is there any way that we can control that from happening to where we can like mowing it down apparently is not working, that it's gonna basically force the whoever that may be to kind of take care of their issues that they need to? And I use Reunion Ridge as an example, because of the common area, right?
Well, I will just admit that's somewhat of a loaded question. There's a lot of things that we can do. It's how we put that into practice, but also how we put that into ordinance. Common area landscape, obviously being managed by an HOA. We don't have many up here, like a landscape maintenance district. Like I said, we don't have many of those. So HOAs, Metro District, or landscape maintenance areas. I think part of it is continual inspection of those areas to see where and how they are in compliance or out of compliance. When it comes to being able to handle it, we do have abatement process that if they're unwilling to cut their weeds, we can go through an abatement process, which will allow for us and our contractor to take action. Now, that's not immediate. That is a process that is having to work with our city attorney's office and others to be able to schedule those hearings. But city attorney and I also discussed, do we need to relook at that process? That may give us a little bit more of a better turnaround.
Are they looking at something just to not necessarily provide a temporary solution, but more of a permanent? If there is a way, right? So, I mean, obviously, because I think where I struggle with this is that where I think about this is the fact that you have, if I constantly see the weeds keep growing in common areas, right? And it happens over and over again. I take pictures of it, put on C-Click Fix, or whatever, send it over to code enforcement to get it, to whatever. Okay, the owner then comes out, mows it down, and then of course, they leave it alone, and maybe several weeks later it happens again, over and over again. I'm trying to figure out a way that we can try to control that systemic issue. And maybe that's not a question to be answered now, but something to think about as we move forward.
Yeah. I think what I'd love to do is visit with you a little bit more to kind of try to understand that.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you.
I have a few things. I haven't seen on the schedule or in your remarks when the Metro District Workshop is scheduled.
So interestingly enough, yes, staff has been working on a framework and an outline. I am reviewing that as we speak, and I do plan on sharing that with council on what our approach is and to get feedback. I would say the intent and the goal is to be able to have what I call a workshop and or a collaboration with all interested stakeholders from our community, and that's very broad-based, sometime in the August-September timeframe. Just with where we stand today and the amount of work that will be necessary to be able to pull the level of public engagement that I would like to see on this, to be able to address the questions and or for you all to be able to have the information necessary to give me and my staff direction on next steps with that. But yes.
Goodness, I would also like to be able to hear from representatives of organizations that have taken strong positions on the metro districts and have lobbied at the state capitol. State Representative Weissman in Aurora has been a leader on many metro district pieces of legislation. I would like to be able to hear from him also. I really want to hear from a wide range of people and not just folks that have one look at metro districts, one view of metro districts. I want to be able to hear from the communities who have wound up suing their metro districts and why they did that and how they overcame the problems. And I really do want a full hearing on this as opposed to a monitored workshop. Workshop is a word you've used, and I really did want it to be more open than that.
So if I will, ma'am, I then will need some more clear direction from the council, because I would say when we last brought this up, and like I said, the clear direction that I'm able to get from council, the better that I will be able to work with my staff on being able to meet an expectation or best come close to it with, once again, the timing and the availability in which this conversation needs to be had, or the conversation which the council would like to have this is also one of those things that I think I need to have a better sense of.
Well, and I want to add too, I think it's important, we need to make sure the mayor is present, so it's the direction of the whole council and the whole body.
Yeah, and I don't think he would be opposed to anything I just said, by the way,
We need to make sure.
because I've had the conversation with him. Okay, next. There was a suggestion for Urban Land Institute classes for council and the planning commission and even staff. Where are we on that?
So pertaining to training for planning commission, I believe Jim is working that through. So once again, training for planning commission, we will have to ask them if they as a body want that. We can't dictate that. We have to present that to them and they have to say yay or nay. We do plan
Even the
on,
city council can't do that?
they have their own bylaws and they have the ability to identify the training that they would like to see. And as a
Okay.
body,
All right, then how about for us?
for you all as a body can make that recommendation for training. That would be in the form, as I understand it with ULI, and we're digging in. Those are taking individually, they're not taken as a group. They are self-taught. So the typical format where we would provide trainings are during orientations and or during study sessions. So there's nothing that prevents council today from undertaking those ULI courses for your own continued information gathering and use during conversations. But for planning commission as a body, as we have, I'll call it formal training sessions for them as a group. That's something that we offer to them, no different that we would offer to you all.
Okay, then it sounds like because we're not members of ULI, that I'll bring it back as a motion on Monday night to make the classes available to the city council members.
You mean on on July 10th, ma'am?
Pardon me?
On July 10th?
Whenever our next meeting is. Okay, when community meetings are held in a ward, can the organizer of those community meetings make sure that the city council is made aware of the meeting? And whether that is a ward representative or the council at large, I don't care which it is, but if you're having an informational meeting for a neighborhood on an issue, to let the city council know that that is occurring. And I'm referring specifically, for example, to the 96th Street widening community meeting, which is on July 12th, and that has not been made public. And it hasn't been shared with the city council.
I just want to make a legal note if more than two of you are planning on attending, then we would need to notice that as an open
Okay,
meeting.
we could publicly notice it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Councilman, do you have any more questions?
Yes, I do.
Related to specifically to his report?
Yes,
Because a lot of them aren't regarding his report.
I am actually making things that I have observed for the city manager. Are you suggesting that I shouldn't?
You can continue.
Okay. Today, when I was driving to the conference at the Gaylord, I counted 35 dead trees on Tower Road. And I'm wondering if we need to replace the trees or if we shouldn't just put trees there. Because it's so expensive. I mean, we're looking at a couple of $1,000s a tree.
104th down to 88th
From
or
104th down to the city boundary
just so for more clarification, in the median or on the side?
in the
street?
median.
Okay.
I didn't count anything on the side.
Okay.
The parcel that is on Tower Road between 96th and 104th
Yeah.
or 100th.
That's a great question. We actually try to work with our counterparts in the county to have them take some level of action, given that we have no right or say over what that occurs on that property. Just being blunt, we've been successful sometimes, but not always in the past with getting that same level of engagement with those kind of private property owners that we have of ours. And, you know, that is a constant conversation that Sean has with the interim community development director and Tricia McKinnon about how to engage our counterparts in those other jurisdictions. It's always an ongoing conversation, discussion, and effort, but that's the only way that we can operate in
Do
that.
we have right of way up to the sidewalk?
We have right of way that is up to the property line. If once again, whether or not where that edge of pavement meets that right of way, and that's something that we have to take a look at. Typically, right, where there's back of sidewalk, that's typically private property, and it becomes a responsibility of that private property on the back of that sidewalk to take care of that. If it's within our right of way, we take care of it, we address it. It's rare we get into those situations on the backside of that sidewalk where our hands are tied.
Okay, and then the last one is the grasses at Buffalo Run East Park. And it's one of those situations where it's hard to tell whether they're grasses or weeds. And I raise this because another major landowner with maintenance issues is concerned about the pressure put on them regarding weeds and the city's not taking care of their own weeds. It's hard, you know, it's hard for people to know that on Tower Road that that's actually county property as opposed to anything else. But Buffalo Run East Park is, I don't know if it's a meadow or what we're aiming for there.
We'll take a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was on your topic of grasses and mowing. Okay. Thank
Any
you.
other council members like to make a report? Councilmember Douglas?
Well, I'd like to, can I ask some
Oh,
questions here?
sorry.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. I'd love to hear that you're addressing the Russian olive tree invasion. What are you doing to make sure that that's permanent? Is it something, or I don't know how deep those roots go or anything like that?
That's a very good question, and I think we are contracted out with an arborist to help us in thinking about that. I think once we get a little bit more information back from that contracted arborist, we can get that out to you, man.
Yeah, because once they're gone, I'd love to see them gone so that we're not dealing with the issue of them coming back again. And I'm not really sure how that happens. And it seems like we lose a lot of good trees here, but those thrive. So, yeah, I'd like to figure out some way to make sure that the trees that are planted survive and thrive. And I'm not exactly sure how that happens, if we really need to focus on gearing towards more drought tolerant species that are going to weather the everything here, and pollution and everything else that affects thriving foliage. So just wanted to ask about that. Congratulations on getting Paradise Island open. That's awesome to hear.
Great team effort by Public Works and PRG.
And this wasn't on the report, but this is something that I'm hearing from the several constituents. They're seeing the banners, like some of them just hanging off and
Hanging by a thread.
yeah, hanging by a thread. And it'd almost be better not to have them up than to have the ones that are hanging by a thread. I don't know, it's
I do know it's on Sean's to-do list. I know he's aware of it. We do have a contractor that's out swapping out these existing banners that we have, given that we're coming into the summer season. I think there's been some communication, he can speak more to it about different approaches of attachment, given that
yeah,
we've
I
had some
was
high winds.
gonna say maybe considering some other form of attachment, because it seems like a lot of them come off the bottom and then they're flopping off on the top, and it's a great idea, especially like at Bison Ridge, when you're coming in and have those sets of banners. It's very inviting and it makes it look very attractive. So the banners are a good thing, but when they're not taken care of well, then they turn out to be a bad thing. So I told them that I would ask and we would get this addressed. It seemed like there was something else, but can't think of what it is offhand. So, okay, thank you.
Any other council members have questions?
I have a question, but it has more to do with the prairie dog issue that we're having around where I live. They are invading the whole side corner of like 112th and Peoria, that very corner of the multifamily housing right there. It's getting pretty bad. I was just walking there the other day and a friend, she popped out and she's like, you need to come and see this. So you can just walk around there and see for yourself. It's starting to evade, getting closer and closer into the actual residential houses in the front yards. So I don't really know how to address that.
That's a good question. I've not had to deal with prairie dogs here in Commerce City.
So yourself like.
How do you
walk by
escape
there,
that?
you can see like the street sign. They're making their houses like right by the street sign.
I think that's
We've
good.
had a contract too.
Yeah,
Um,
I've just to be honest with you,
I
man,
wanna
since my
use
time
it,
here, I've
yeah.
not had to see that actualized, so, but
Have them moved in
yes.
We can't spay and neuter or?
I got this last time we
Some
got
of them are
prairie
really,
dogs.
really big.
resist sign with my photo on it. That's last time we dealt with paradox, because I wanted to
It was one
go.
of the most divisive.
Any other
Yeah,
council,
sorry, I was about to bring it up again.
any other council members have questions for Mr. Rogers?
I would like one clarification because, thank you to City Attorney Ms. Geiger. She did share with me, there is a council policy where you could make requests of boards and commissions for meetings, for additional training. I know the planning commission, maybe not the full body, but individually have asked for us to provide additional training for them. And would like to have opportunities to be able to speak, have those opportunities with the council. I think what we always want to do to show just a level of respect for the board and commissions is to put that out there to them as well for their own knowledge. So I just wanted to correct myself.
Councilmember Ford.
On the mowing stuff, Jason, I notice it all the time. And it drives me crazy because the median in Peoria from 104th North is owned by the Metro District. And the only time it ever gets taken care of is if I complain about it and I get a complaint for months on end to get it taken care of. But the dead trees and the weeds are waist deep. I mean, it's horrific from what a median in our community should look like. So I noticed it again tonight on my way here and I thought, you know what? That's why we have council members in different wards and everything else, is you drive by things and you notice them. And I see it every day. And I know our residents are seeing it every day. And number one, I don't understand why we have a median in between north and southbound lanes in one of our roadways. That's a Metro District's responsibility, but it has to be maintained. It looks horrific. And the dead trees, it's not one here, one there. It's 3 or 4 in a row. And so I'd love to see that taken care of.
I mean, there's a process that if we city have to do it, and right, we're I want to say we're stuck, we're bound by the process that we have, right? It's not under our authority, it's not our ability, but we can get to a position where we can take action on it. It's just having to run it through a process. The easiest, the most simplest way is to have a compliant partner who is the authority to work with us. And that's been challenging. And I would say it's been challenging over the last 3 or 4 years. Doesn't mean that we don't continue to try to find a solution, but we'll reach out, we'll have conversations, and we'll take appropriate steps.
Yeah, if we can't get them to do it, we need to do it and then charge them for the time. It doesn't matter at this point. It looks terrible and it needs to be taken. Just, yeah, go. You know what? Before you were here as the city manager, I still remember telling the city manager, if you can't get this done, I will take my mower and my weed eaters and I will go up there and mow it and pull the trees out with my truck. At least it'll look decent, but it's embarrassing as a council member to have constituents believe that that's city property and we're not maintaining our stuff. So if the Metro District last time it was, well, they don't have much money, how are they gonna take care of that? Yeah, listen, I'm sorry. If it's their obligation, they need to take care of it. And if they're not going to take care of it, send a crew up there with weed eaters, and pull the dead trees out of the ground, and at least cut the stuff down because it just looks bad on our end. It doesn't look bad on their end. It looks bad on our end. And so, but it's every single time the thing gets overgrown, nobody takes care of it. And then when it's so bad that it's noticeable to everybody, it takes a long time to get anything done with it. And that's the part that's frustrating me, is it's so far out of hand right now. And let's just take care of it and sort it out. But if they can't manage that median, then we should manage it and take it away from them, because it looks bad on our end, like we're not responding. So if you would please look into that one for me and give me an update.
So a legal point, there are limitations and restrictions from having the ability to walk onto other and an use property to do things like that. So to the extent that helps with,
Again, that's, it's in the middle
Issues.
of our road.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
so,
It's in the middle of our road.
yeah, but I mean, there are a number of ways of addressing it, but just, I would advise
Don't go out
against
there with
going
your
there with your own.
Oh, you know what? Trust
Sure.
me.
But
we need to-
understand the sentiment, yes.
Yeah, no, and it's come close at times to just go out there and take care of it, but.
I think
it
Arnold
needs to-
Schwarzenegger did something like that recently where you filled in a
Potholes.
pothole and it ended up being a federal.
He doesn't know what he's doing. He used the wrong material.
I don't think that was the issue. I think that it was
He got in trouble.
utility, yeah.
For using the wrong material.
Mr. Rogers, before we give direction for the July 31st meeting and the ARPA fund, you asked about, did you talk to the mayor first? Did he have a preference or?
We did did not have a chance to talk with the mayor with respect to the ARPA dollar request. That's been a most recent conversation that we've had with staff over the past, I would call it 4 or 5 days. With respect to the July 31st meeting, it was shared with them. I didn't get a firm yes or no from the mayor, but once again, thought I'd bring it to the body. Once again, whether it is tonight or once again, since this is a study session, quite frankly, it would have to be during admin council business or announced council business on July 10th meeting for us to be able to take that step with the July 31st meeting. So.
Was there any, I was going to propose, or any council members against the July 31st and then the ARP funds, but then if you could consult with the mayor, if he has conflicts or any, is anyone opposed with both of those? No. Great. And then if you'll still consult with the mayor if he has any concerns or issues with those dates and those two ARPA funds.
Yes, ma'am.
Next, I'm going to invite our interim city attorney, Ms. Geiger, to give her report.
Not have much for you all. I will be out Wednesday through Tuesday, July 4th. Nothing blows up in those 2 days. Been attending CML with some of you here, which has been really interesting. On the ballot questions, with regard to chickens, bees, and ducks, you should see hopefully on the July 17th regular meeting. So yeah, apparently they're associated with chickens because it all fell. And I will refrain from doing the chicken dance this evening, but hopefully, yeah, you all see those questions to at the meeting on July 17th.
Also, Mr. Rogers, during your report, I just had another question to you before the next meeting. Can we have staff update our current photo for the
Yes,
current
ma'am.
city council members?
We were just chatting about that before the meeting. We will make sure that we have an updated screensaver. Profile picture, thank you. I'm not testifying. So, profile picture.
Thank you, thanks. And are there any council members wishing to make reports?
I was just wondering if I could get approval to go to the EDNR meeting in Tacoma, Washington with the NLC July 19th through the 21st. Should I do that this or should I do that?
So I have to bring that up.
Yeah, it can be okay.
Thank you. Sorry. Still learning the theory.
I've had a particularly busy couple of weeks touring the affected homes in the Buffalo Highlands neighborhood. The Parrot homes have really been impacted by the storms. It may have exacerbated construction problems there or just brought the construction issues to the forefront. Either way, they're facing a lot of problems right now. And I really do sympathize with the residents. We had a meeting tonight with the city manager, the deputy city manager, our interim public works director and our assistant city manager and Councilmember Kim to see what we can do and look at other steps for all of these folks. Some of them have only been in their homes less than 6 months, and it's really a difficult situation. I'm at the CML conference during the day, which is, today was really fascinating. It was a great conference going on. Also attended the Parks, Recreation and Golf meeting, where we learn more about the triathlon that's upcoming in Commerce City in October. I attended the Juneteenth celebration, which was really well done and great to have had our first celebration and to honor so many of our residents. And finally, the Senior Resource Fair was held recently, and it was fantastic. This was their second annual Senior Resource Fair, had even more vendors present, line dancing, exercise classes, golf, food, you name it. I think it was a really wonderful event, and all of the volunteers on the senior commission should be very proud of themselves, and the staff did a fantastic job too. So we thank everyone involved.
I just had one question too on your report. The meeting that occurred today, why wasn't all the council members invited?
This was a specific request made by only a handful of council members. I think it was more, and I also allow for the council members that participate to speak for themselves, but I think in just being prepared for discussion at town hall, where we may have some engagement for residents that live within that affected ward. So I believe that was the precipice for why the meeting was being called, just to make sure that staff is prepared to be able to engage with our residents and try to help them understand what we're looking into, how we're going to be looking into it and working with them going forward. But I'll allow the council members who attended to speak for themselves.
Which reminds me, echoing Mr. Rogers' comment, I invite everyone at the council also to attend the town hall on Wednesday night. It's our final one. And of course, staff is present, which I think is really great. And anyone can come from anywhere in Commerce City. If you haven't been able to attend Councilmember Madera's or Mayor Pro Tem Alan Thomas's or Councilmember Chacon's, then you can come to this one and get some of your questions asked. We're bringing government to you, and look forward to seeing you at South Lawn Elementary on Wednesday night.
Because back to my concern, I just think that it should be brought up to that, you know, even though the residents live in that area, we're all city council, so it would have been nice if all, you know, all the council, you know, we're all Commerce City regardless. So I just think that should have been offered to all the council members to participate in that meeting today and made aware of the meeting as well.
Just to coordinate with the clerks, because that would need to be noticed as well. As a public meeting.
Well, we still should have all been invited. But do any other council members have a report? Councilmember Doug?
Yes, thank you, Pam. I'm also, I'm attending the CML conference this week, and I really appreciate the opportunity because we always want to be learning about what we can do for our citizens to provide them the best quality of life, and attending conferences like that really provides that opportunity. So thank you to the rest of the council for allowing those who are going this week to have the opportunity. I also attended the Senior Resource Fair, and everybody who attended just, they raved about it. They thought it was fantastic. They really enjoyed themselves, and they just really appreciated that being offered to them. So those of you who worked on it, thank you so much, because it was a great community event and the community appreciated it. Also went to the first Music in the Park, and it was a fantastic event, very well attended. And I want to thank the members of the Cultural Council who worked really hard on that for stepping up and putting in their volunteer time, because everything that they do, especially Rana Sanchez and Jackie Riggs, but especially Rana this time with the Music in the Park, she has really gone above and beyond. And she also works on all of our grants, and she does that just out of the goodness of her heart because she loves the community so much. So I want to acknowledge that work that those people put in. And I also see their husbands side by side with them, which I think is really nice. So that getting that support from the family. So I also want to acknowledge their husband's participation and support as well. Seems like there's been a lot of interaction with community members, and I just want to make sure that we're all focused on our community members, that's why we're here. Is why we're here, and we need to listen to their concerns and interact with them, and then either make connections where they can get the services that they need, or help them get those services. And we just need to pay really close attention to our constituents, and just in knowing that that's our job as elected officials, and so I urge everybody else on council to do the same. And I know a lot of you are, but the more interactive that you can get with the public, to make it better. I think that's it. Come to the next Music in the Park. Great need to interact with the community there, and also I'll be attending the final town hall. I've made it to every one of them. I think that town halls are fantastic and another way to be able to know who the community members are, what their concerns are, what they like about the city, what we could improve on. And so if we could keep town halls going forward, that would be fantastic. And I think our citizens would definitely appreciate that as well.
Council members wishing to make a report. Except like this time I will make my report. Had a real busy last couple of weeks. The 14th I had my town hall, and wanted to thank all the residents, my constituents, and city staff and council members that attended my town hall. On June 15th, I went to the ribbon cutting ceremony, grand opening for Volunteers of America. That was a really great event. They had great food, and it's in my ward, Ward 2. So I think that's a great asset that came to the city. I also attended this year's first Music in the Park at the Veterans Memorial. That was a great event also. June 16th, we did have the official planning meeting for the Juneteenth event, which was June 19th on Monday. That was really a great event, and to see that occur in Commerce City, like I said, was something really to be celebrated. On June 17th, I went to the Senior Resource Fair. Like I said, really neat to see the seniors involved in the community, and the Senior Commission, they put a lot of work into that. And would like to give kudos to the staff, Jenny, who really helped get everything together for that event also. I also went to Councilmember Chacon's town hall. She did a great job. That was a really nice, informative town hall as well. On June 22nd, last Thursday, I went to the groundbreaking ceremony for the Wood Springs Hotel. That was really nice, and Mayor Heasman was present at that as well, so our city manager, deputy city manager, so that's really neat, exciting event that is coming to Commerce City also. I was at the CML conference today also. We'll be there the rest of the next couple of days and saw a lot of the staff and council members there. Would like to give kudos as well to, like I said, get a lot of really happy residents and just non-residents to see Paradise Island work open up again. So I wanted to say thank you for making that happen. And kudos to the staff, Sean also, who's been keeping us updated with his pictures and all on 96 about the floods. And then, it's like I said, real busy couple of weeks. Then lastly, I wanted to add, like I said, as I mentioned before, I think if there's any type of meetings, et cetera, going on, that we're all notified or invited, because to me, it seems like a type of favoritism, you know, and we're all equal. We're all one city council. So I hope, you know, in my opinion, that doesn't occur again, and that we're all one body and we're all treated equally. And just probably we won't see each other again till after the 4th of July. So like to wish everyone a happy 4th of July. That's all I have for my report.
I do want to make clear to everyone that there was no intention to leave anyone out of this. It did have strictly to do with notifications. Councilmember Kim has relationships with many residents in Buffalo Highlands, and I have relationships also. So it happened to be that the two of us, not together, but separately, had been invited into the neighborhood to look at some of the damage that has been occurring. And this was the simplest way to make it happen. We can certainly have the discussion again with everyone, and I'm sure it'll come up at the town hall, and we can schedule a discussion for an agenda as well. Anything you'd like. If you want to come see any of the houses, just let me know, because I'll tell you, they would be thrilled to be able to show you what's going on there. So this is nothing, in no way was there any intention to leave anyone out of this process. So apologies to anyone who might have felt slighted in any fashion.
And one more addition, I just want to thank the city so much for celebrating Juneteenth. I don't know what happened the previous year, and to have it completely turn around and to do an actual celebration and to make it a holiday for those of us who celebrate Juneteenth, and it's important to our families. Just want to let you know that it was sincerely appreciated, and it was a wonderful event. And thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for working so hard on it. You really did a great job.
This time the meeting is adjourned. Thanks for joining us, everyone watching in.